Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. We've got an impromptu show this morning, a podcast. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence. It's Sunday morning here in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And both Jesse and I have come in to kick off this AI podcast to see if our audience enjoys this topic and whether we can add any value to this up and coming new technology. Those of you that are watching us, hopefully Instagram can now hear us. We're on a number of platforms. And to start this podcast off, I wanted to discuss a bit about our company's history. We have always embraced high tech. We've been doing this type of stuff for 40 years, and there's a lot of fear and trepidation around artificial intelligence, as there usually is with any new technology. People are threatened. We fear the unknown. That's just a basic human trait. In 1995, for example, we started a company called Extreme Internet. That was as the information age was beginning to blossom, and we built that within 10 years into a very successful company. And again, embracing high tech, the same types of concerns swirled, what will it do? What will the information do? Will it affect our privacy? Will it take away jobs? And the same sort of rhetoric that we're hearing now about AI. So we can entertain questions, by the way. Let us know where you're coming in from. And it looks like we've got our first one from YouTube. There, Souverain or Souverain. Hello from Munich, Germany. Munich, Germany. I was born just a little way south of that in Rosenheim. Welcome, and thanks for joining us. Then we've got YouTube. Manoj Chaudhary. He says hi.
Oh, actually, sorry, that's LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, LinkedIn. There we go. So some of the things that we wanted to talk about is how AI is beginning to affect various markets, jobs, how businesses are beginning to adopt it. And one of the things that had been a concern was AI-generated art. In fact, the image behind me is an AI-generated art. The first type of skill, it looks like, that will be affected by the introduction of AI might be graphic artists.
So I'm going to pull that up on a laptop view for everybody.
Yeah.
So they can see the full image.
The proliferation, or what AI can generate instantly, is just unprecedented. And we use it quite often here for our YouTube thumbnails, for backgrounds, for images, even B-roll. And it has shortened our processing time tremendously and boosted our quality, the production quality tremendously with our social media type efforts, especially videos. So one of the things that was just apparently ruled by the Copyright Office in the United States is that AI-generated art cannot be copyrighted. And of course, that was kind of a disappointment to many people that thought, "Oh my God, I'm going to be able to create a bunch of images, copyright them," and it kind of begs the question: these types of businesses that were made a living from becoming a repository of pictures and images and then selling them. It seems like that whole industry now is under attack and may disappear as well, because you really don't need to go out and get stock images anymore or pay for them. If you can just simply get creative, come up with a great prompt, and you get exactly what you want without having to fish and hunt and then pay for it once you find it. Looks like an Instagram visitor is joining us. And by the way, Instagram is one of the platforms that cannot see the images behind us. So as we pop them up, I'll make sure that I describe them adequately for our Instagram viewers. But he says, Trey Wayfair, or Trey Wayfar. He says, "Hey, from Scottsdale, local guy. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Any of you, by the way, that are local here, Gruber Motor Company gives tours almost daily. And it's the auto shop of the future. People that come always enjoy it. They love it. They Even Tesla people and ex-Tesla people come because for them it's a nostalgia trip. They get to see what Tesla was 10, 15 years ago when it was nothing but Tesla Roadsters. So feel free to visit us. We give tours anywhere from 7 till 5 o'clock every day. Instagram, Brand.Clue is joining us. He says, will there ever be a dominating operating system for EVs in the future, similar to iOS or Android, and be open for development by third parties in the future? My vote on that is absolutely. In fact, that takes me into another topic that I wanted to talk about, which is near and dear to our hearts. We have been saying and predicting now for some time that as the EV adoption rate continues to climb exponentially, and you have all of these new EV manufacturers jumping into the fray, they aren't going to be able to build their service delivery system. Tesla struggled with that for years, but remember, Tesla was ramping. The number of vehicles that they were putting out there seemed to keep pace with their service delivery, although some people may argue that. The new guys aren't going to be able to build service delivery quickly enough. And even if they were, there is a severe shortage of talented, skilled people in this business. We know this well because with Gruber Motor Company, we are growing out of our socks. And the only thing that is limiting our ability to scale, open up other service centers around the country, around the world, is a severe shortage of talented people that can do this type of work. You know, I can't go down to the local Chevy dealer and poach any mechanics there, because if we bring them in, even master mechanics, they have no clue how to work on an EV, especially Tesla, where you have software. And in our world, in the independent repair world, we have to chip chase. We have to repair it right down to component level, and that requires 3 distinct skills. Mechanical skills, definitely, software skills, and electronics background. And to find those 3 in one individual is virtually impossible. So our prediction is that AI is coming into the cars, and it's coming rapidly, not just full self-driving, but we predict that the cars need to become a lot smarter about self-diagnosing themselves. And with direct links back to the manufacturers, which of course they have, like the Tesla cars, they communicate with the mothership. And at any point in time, they're like a node on a network. And that server back at corporate knows exactly what that car's doing, what it's experiencing, where it is, how long it's sitting at that restaurant, whether it's running or functioning or not. That information now can be used for diagnosis, troubleshooting, pre-ordering parts it may need, and eventually these cars may drive themselves to the service center once full self-driving is online. So yes, AI is definitely going to move into transportation in a huge way, just out of necessity.
All right, Pete, can you grab your cell phone? I think
Sure.
it's beeping over there on you.
All right, excuse me just a second here, folks. It's probably my wife sending pictures about the granddaughter. It is, after all, Sunday, and so we've got another question. TikTok, Smuggler. Hey, Smuggler, how you doing? He says, wasn't expecting you guys to be online when I got the invite. Here comes Skynet. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Again, this is an impromptu podcast where we thought, in fact, Jesse and I, he's here in the studio with me, and we've decided to try an experimental AI podcast just to see how this resonates with our technical audience. YouTube, Car and Drone is joining us. Instagram, Daywiz_1 question says, what can cause ECU high temp on Tesla Model 3? Boy, that's, we don't see many Model 3s, first of all, but that is a symptom that I have not heard about. The types of problems that we have here in the Southwest in Phoenix, where it gets extremely hot in the summer, of course, are plasma leakage on the screens. And, of course, the batteries are continuously cooling themselves. So that's one that I have not heard. Getting back to AI for a moment. So AI is moving into the cars, we feel, and it's going to be necessitated by an inability to get these cars serviced or to find staff to service them. They're going to have to become more intelligent. Artificial intelligence. Somebody pointed out the other day I was looking at a Mid-Journey post, and someone had prompted Mid-Journey to create some designer sneakers, athletic wear. And what this Mid-Journey program generated was some really cool design sneakers. And somebody pointed out, I can't wait until AI communicates directly with Midjourney, and you can 3D print directly from that kind of a prompt. And it occurred to me, at least, part of what makes 3D expensive, makes it cumbersome and time consuming. We 3D print Tesla Roadster parts, for example, is all the processing time, putting in all of the parameters, doing the scans, the precise measurements. Well, AI can do that in a heartbeat, much faster than a human being. So that would be one application for AI, is to work directly with 3D printing. And all you do then is you create the concept with a prompt. If you like it, then you put it in your 3D program, and this thing will spit out exactly what it has envisioned and created in the image. Instagram, Trav Wayfar, he says, sounds like the engineers really need to be the ones working with AI. If the manufacturers don't have their teams learning AI, the company will get left behind. My take on that is, and the companies probably don't talk about it, but companies like Tesla, they're not a car company, they're a tech company. And they've been in AI for many years, as of course Elon in 2015, with the creation of OpenAI. I can't imagine that any of these major manufacturers don't have teams on staff that are fully immersed in the development of artificial intelligence for a number of applications within the company. We're a small company, and we're doing it. I mean, we use AI to create scripts for our YouTube videos, or we create the script the old way, by creative thinking, and then we run it through ChatGPT-4 to abbreviate, make it more compelling, make it humorous, and what it generates often gives us a plethora of great ideas that we can incorporate in the videos. I'll give you another example. The other day on Instagram, one of our competitors was asking about one of our proprietary processes for how we find resistive cells in Tesla battery packs. And, we share an enormous amount of information, but anything like that took us years of development and great expense, we're not yet ready to release, and are under no obligation to release, because it gives us a competitive edge. So I needed a nice way to say what I just said verbally on Facebook. So just for the heck of it, I went into ChatGPT-4, and the prompt was, explain to this competitor why it's not in our best interest to release technical information like this, but be kind and gentle. And you know what it spit out? First generation, what it spit out was exactly what needed to be said. And I used that. So anyway, we use ChatGPT-4. We use Midjourney. And there are other programs we're looking into at this point. Jesse, you want to chime in at this point?
Yeah, we use a couple of different softwares for editing as well. So can't really show them off here, but there's a couple of them that help us with various tasks.
So even small companies, small $30 million a year for companies, or even smaller, I would imagine, are using AI to begin to assist with various functions. And of course, we have people here too that are concerned about their jobs, and will this take my job and take over? At this point, all it's doing is improving our procedures. It's shortening the time. It's increasing our margins as a result. And again, we are embracing it wholeheartedly. So YouTube, we've got a visitor, Car and Drone. He says, I look forward to a little robot dog in the shop to unplug high voltage. That's a good idea. Now, that's an interesting notion. Do you remember Chernobyl, when they had to send people in, or they mistakenly sent people into this nuclear disaster, and some of them ended up, unfortunately, dying years later of radiation poisoning? Here's where robots come in. Here's where AI comes in. We no longer need to send humans into dangerous situations like that.
We send in the Tesla bot.
Exactly, yes, to work around high voltage or whatever else it is. Instagram, vegan meatloaf MTB. He's saying, I'm sure an early AI design for Cybertruck. That's a great point because this thing looks substantially different than anything that's ever been created, and it's not typical Franz von Holzhausen design. So maybe they did use AI. He says AI is the only explanation for the design of the Cybertruck. In quotes, her design, a stainless, aerodynamic, structurally optimized truck design. Oh, here is a, yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
that's like
quite
the
likely.
example of the prompt that someone probably used
Oh,
to
I see
to
what we're
make the
doing.
Cybertruck. He's basically just saying somebody used AI to make the Cybertruck because it's so out of this world.
Well, those of you that use Midjourney, there's an idea for you. See if you can recreate a Cybertruck prompt that makes it, and if it does begin to look like it, this is reminiscent of the Tesla Model 2 about 3 weeks ago or so. Those of you that are on any social media sites, you're constantly seeing teasers from Tesla, what this next generation, lower cost Tesla is going to look like. And people have been speculating, well, they'll probably call it Model 2. So I finally got tired of this dark silhouette that Tesla kept on teasing us with. And I said to AI, Midjourney, I said, create me a Tesla Model 2 vehicle. And what it generated was compelling. Do we have a picture of that, by the way? I think we can pop one up. Yeah, the Model 2. And you know
Yeah, let
what?
me look at that.
Just for laughs, I posted this on Facebook. That image became the most popular image that we have ever posted on any of our social media sites. Just one Facebook site alone, we're now up to, I think, over 200 likes on this image, and it's still popping up on our feed regularly. And what it does is it took the Tesla silhouette teaser and just fleshed out the rest of it. It gave us something below the silhouette that looked quite compelling. So it'll be interesting. If Tesla is using AI for this Model 2 or whatever they're going to call it, we may have scooped it and been able to show it ahead of time.
Yeah, I'll keep looking for it. I don't remember which show that was, so I've got to find it in the images folder.
Okay, all right. There are questions streaming in, and we've got kind of a lull right now. Let me tell you about something else that we did. We have Alexa at home, and every supper, my wife and I sit there and we ask Alexa, what is the question of the day? And we always, are either stymied or right on track. And I think the questions are getting harder, by the way. I think she's figured out that maybe we're figuring it out too quickly. But anyway, it occurred to me the other day, why not a God chat? Wouldn't it be cool? Instead of praying or going through the various religious beliefs that we have, most of them, assume that there is some communication possible with higher entities or deities. And it usually comes in a variety of ways. Adam and Eve speaking directly to humans kind of stopped when the prophets began to have dreams and visions and all that. But it occurred to me, wouldn't it be cool if we had a God chat, just like Alexa, and you could actually communicate with God? So, extrapolating this a bit, we actually created a video postulating the possibility of this and how much more useful it would be. And is it possible that God, who is omnipotent and knows everything, and is has the entire knowledge of human history, might also be participating in the creation of AI? So, for those of you interested, if you go on our YouTube channel, grubermotors.com or Gruber Motors, there is a video out there that is called God Chat, and it poses some intriguing questions. People seem to enjoy that video. YouTube, Len Palmieri says, hi from Michigan. What are your thoughts on Ford adopting the NACS connector? We did a short live video on that as well. We are ecstatic. The lack of standardization is way overdue. And when Tesla released their specifications, we had hoped that the rest of the world would immediately adopt this. There's a Sandy Munro video where he's got this gigantic, huge cable that he and Corey are holding up. And it's getting a bit silly as to how large these cables and connectors are becoming. Remember, the Tesla Trident connector, which the NACS standard uses, is able to sense both AC and DC input. And then the directing of the input voltages are taken care of by the high voltage junction box underneath the rear seat. It makes so much more sense to have one connector. And what we pointed out was it's without standardization. It's kind of like having different gas stations for every brand of car rather than just having one nozzle that fits all. And this is making a lot more sense. So we're ecstatic. We figured after Ford did this, that the others would follow suit, and just were amazed that a week later, the other third large, the third large auto manufacturer jumped on the bandwagon. Now, what we predict, of course, which isn't hard to predict, the rest of them are going to follow suit quickly. Aptera already announced their adoption of this NACS standard for their cars, even though they're not producing cars yet, but the other guys are. So we're pretty excited about it. We think it's a great thing. So
And, well, also, if they want to go watch that, it's about 2 days ago, I think. We have an hour-long podcast about that where you and Mark go more into detail on all this stuff.
good point. Yes, it's under our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and it's a good watch. TikTok Smuggler asks, AI might be able to determine a potential failure before it happens, so it would be great diagnostic tool. That's an excellent point, Smuggler. We've been talking about the log files that we collect in the Tesla Roadster. That's one of the things that the first generation EV really does well, which is log everything. And oftentimes there's information in the log file that hasn't yet made it to the vehicle display screen that the user sees in the car. And it does some predictive analysis. You can begin to see brewing problems that eventually will manifest. So you're right on track there, Smuggler. AI can definitely determine potential failures. YouTube or Instagram, DJVIP510. He says, "Hey, yo, who let Uncle take over the stream on a Sunday?"
Yeah, I figured that was a good one.
Yeah.
We just decided to do a random podcast for no reason.
Random podcast. Both Jesse and I we probably have better things to do on the weekend, but we thought we would experiment, try this, and see how this resonates. So again, getting back to AI, a brief bit of history about AI. In 2015, they say it was the beginning. Elon Musk and Sam Altman had a shared view of the dangers and risks and opportunities of AI technology. And remember, back then they called it open AI for a very distinct reason. They did not want this to be commercialized and pay per view. Very generous of them. They wanted to develop it openly. By 2018, they had a breakup. Elon Musk resigned from OpenAI, and there are a number of speculations as to what this was about. And part of it was there was a conflict of interest for Elon with Tesla and OpenAI. In 2018, again, GPT became live and on board. And by 2019, for-profit OpenAI AI was created. And it was a subsidiary called OpenAI LP to generate revenue from commercial AI and reinvest in OpenAI's research. In 2019, GPT-2 came online. And by 2019, $1 billion was infused by Microsoft into the OpenAI research and platform. By 2020, GPT-3 came online. 2021, DALL-E, DALL-E. 2022, ChatGPT-3 was introduced. And by 2023, questions around regulations became important. And then by 2023, this is rumored, there was another $10 billion investment in OpenAI by Microsoft. And then it says to be continued. So there's a bit of history. What we're beginning to see now also is some commercialization. People are taking the lead with this, generating books on AI, tutorials, self-help, and of course, charging for that. I've got one book that just became aware of. It's called Chat GPT Simplified. It's a non-tech beginner's guide to understanding AI. It's kind of like the dummies, book for a particular topic. And this one appears to be available on Amazon. Um, and it says, let me see if I can get a little bit more information here. It says this is a book. Unlike other AI books, this one feels like it's been written by human for humans. I recommend this book to beginners, but even those who've been using ChatGPT for a while now. You will learn a lot. It's self-help, and it's got vibes for, I can't read the rest of that. All right, we've got some questions. Let's see. TikTok smuggler, welcome. Everyone will win with the adoption of the Tesla standard. Very true. More charging stations means less weight, potentially less costs, as more users will be able to cover costs or just having the charging stations. What we had already postulated was that now that the other big three auto, or the other two big auto manufacturers in the US are jumping into this, instead of developing their own proprietary charging systems, they're going to help Tesla develop charging systems all across the world. So this can only drive EV adoption as the charging infrastructure becomes more robust. And it's like Mary Barra pointed out. She said in her market, her customers were reluctant, some of them, to get into EVs because there wasn't a robust enough charging structure available, or there were too many of them. And with this adoption now, she feels that GM's EV adoption rate will actually continue to improve.
And Pete, I think that's just brilliant of Tesla, to have put that out there. Now they have everybody else building chargers for their cars, which is, for them as a business is incredible. I'm sure they're going to keep building their infrastructure, but
Precisely. And, people are speculating, well, now, Tesla's going to make even more money, and this was a ploy to increase margins. Our take on that is Tesla has typically been like Nikola Tesla, been willing to share patents, been willing to share IP, and their overriding ultimate goal, although they're a corporation focused on profits because they have shareholders, we've noticed that they're willing to reinvest at a pace that is unlike any other car manufacturer, opening all these additional production facilities, for example. And the overriding goal, which is the transition to sustainable energy. So not as self-serving as most for-profit corporations. It turns out that Tesla actually makes their own supercharger stations. And I needed to do this research because oftentimes, companies outsource a product like this that isn't mainstream, but they actually do make their own supercharger stations. What I find interesting is it's entirely possible that the Ford and Chevy dealers now are going to have Tesla charging stations on their facilities.
yeah, I mean, why not? It's going to help so much. I mean, they need to keep the cars charged anyway, right? For all the new vehicles they'll be releasing.
Mm-hmm.
You're turning a dealership will now have another reason for people to visit it, which, a while ago, Pete, you might talk more about this. We talked about the end of dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't seem to be the case if this is really going to be adopted by all the major dealerships.
Sure, good point. I mean, as the Teslas start showing up at the Chevy dealerships or GM dealerships, Ford dealerships, they're going to have some time on their hands, just like they would at the mall. And they may just go in and look at the vehicles that are available. So yeah, it can only help the dealers by driving more traffic and more visibility to their operations. So, like you said, maybe this is the shot in the arm that the dealers needed to avoid becoming extinct. YouTube, Travis Farmer, welcome. He says, when do you see the charging stations being ubiquitous in the more remote locations? The demand typically drives free enterprise. And as those remote locations have more EVs, It just makes perfect economic sense for someone jumping on the bandwagon and creating the infrastructure if they can monetize it. So this can only help. He says, once I can take an EV on the road trip and not feel like I'll be stranded, I'll be 100% behind that.
So I'm gonna bring up the Tesla supercharging network so people can see how many there are all over, especially in remote locations. We were talking in just a few shows ago about the one out in Quartzsite. You want to talk about that one?
Oh, sure, sure. In fact, some of this information concerns about not having enough EV charging stations and the fact that you get range anxiety because you may run out of juice and then what, Those fears have been allayed within the last couple of years as the charging network has just exploded exponentially. And we talked about this in a number of our podcasts that people traveling cross country, for example, have a wide range of options for charging. Things like range anxiety with an EV are a thing of the past. Not only do you have supercharger locations, but the explosion of destination chargers at malls, hotels, businesses, restaurants, even.
Okay, I'm gonna pull that up now.
Yeah, you're they're becoming as ubiquitous as gas stations. There we go. Got a pretty good map. And the car will actually tell you how far it is to the next charging station, recommendations about where the shortest distance is. Um, yeah, so you can see there. And this is a map of the U.S. This phenomenon is occurring all over the globe, actually.
I mean, just look at how many of these there are.
Oh.
I think the red are the superchargers, then the other ones are the destination chargers. But for people that are still talking about range anxiety at this point, especially, this is just Tesla alone. This isn't talking about Blink or Electrify America or any of the other chargers out there. There isn't a reason to have range anxiety, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And that'll of course get better, but there's chargers everywhere.
Absolutely. Yep. So the NACS standard, it's a welcome change from our perspective, being in the EV business. The Tesla Roadster, of course, we're still going to have to live with a proprietary large connector, but there is a Roadster owner in the Roadster community. Henry Sharp is his name, who for many years has been making an adapter. And one of his adapters, the CAN Senior, looks like about the size of a Coke can or so, actually adapts the Roadster charge socket to the NACS standard or the Trident connector. It won't do DC fast charging, supercharging, because the Tesla Roadster wasn't prepared to take direct DC, but it certainly handles all the destination chargers that you could come across around the United States. So Instagram, Elyatu_Sabe says, what do I think of the brain chip? Well, we live in an exciting time. And the connection between our bioorganism or Homo sapien or humans and machines is well underway. We are becoming cyborgs. That little cell phone that I carry with me is a lot smarter than I am, and it's an extension of my brain already. Direct connections, they're very crude at this point, but as many people have postulated, this may be the answer to, things like spinal injuries where a portion of the body doesn't work anymore and bridging that gap. It's a very exciting time. And then, of course, a direct connection to the brain where we can actually do a backup of our consciousness. And of course, the next thing is, can we move that consciousness into a body or into a robot that's stronger, faster, more or less impervious to environmental issues, so we can go into outer space without needing a space suit? It just opens up a host of possibilities. So again, on the surface, it may seem a bit threatening and strange, but embrace it because it's coming. There's nothing we're going to be able to do about stopping it. Here's another funny thing, and chime in, Jesse.
Yeah, hold on, let me put myself up on screen here.
All right. This recent narrative that you're hearing from a lot of people, including Elon. We need to slow down AI. We need to curb it. We need to put it, in a closet somewhere for a while. it seems to me it's way beyond that point. What are your thoughts, Jess?
Yeah, it's too late for all that, especially when you have things like Facebook that had their large language model completely leaked to the internet
Uh-huh.
within a few weeks of it being created and being released to researchers to test. It's out there now, effectively open source to everybody. So, and that's the whole point of open AI. That's why they called it open AI, right? So that everything could be open to the public, open source projects. I don't know that it's still that way, but uh, the Pandora's box is really the only way to frame it. It's far too late for us to turn this off. I don't think people understand that.
And, we tend to humanize AI with our frailties, greed, envy, jealousy, anger. I mean, our typical reaction to strange things oftentimes is to kill it, like that balloon that
Yeah.
they killed where we might have had anti gravity, but, that's way out there. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but we
Hmm.
tend to humanize AI, and I'm not sure that AI, even AGI, is going to have these kinds of unproductive emotions that human beings have characteristically carried with them ever since the dawn of time. I was going to say maybe we don't want to make AI angry because it may, become adversarial, but I do not believe that anything that intelligent is going to indulge in the type of unproductive emotions that human beings are capable of. So, just from that standpoint, um,
Well, the problem with that, Pete, and this is what happens in a lot of the articles and a lot of the news that's out there. People talk about alignment. That's the primary term that people use with making sure that AI and its goals and missions and directives align with keeping humans alive, right? So that it doesn't
mhm,
exterminate us all, or that's obviously a worst case scenario. But um, not having that emotion could actually still just be as much of a problem because if it had emotion and it felt bad for us, it would let us survive. If it were making a logical choice
right.
and it saw how we were, detrimental to the environment and to the planet and to each other, it may not keep us alive, right? So there's both sides of that coin of how do we get this alignment problem solved, and I don't think anybody has a real solution to that yet.
Right. And the issue of competing for resources comes up often. Let's not forget that anything that is this intelligent, that is this capable, I- is going to consider Earth the only place that it can, actualize. So, if we're fighting for the Earth and there are limited resources, I just can't imagine that anything like AGI would be interested in exterminating a species like us because they felt that we were competing with them in any way. And who
Yeah.
knows, the future of the human race may be we start getting rid of these bodies at some point in time, and we start manifesting through machines.
Well, that's
So
the brain chip. That's where that comes in, right? Well, to
exactly.
go back to that for a second too, I'll let you kind of go more on this because you have more of a religious background than I do. But that's why a lot of people are upset with Neuralink recently getting approved for human trials, limited trials. Um, People see this as the mark of the beast, right? They
Hmm.
see this as the moment that's foretold in their prophecies or whatever it is in the religion, um, and they see this as kind of the beginning of the end. And some people are even saying that AI, just in general, is like the Antichrist, right? It's we saw a lot of this reaction to our GodChat video on Facebook, where the purpose of Neuralink is to connect with people that are severely disabled, right? It's not just I want to get a brain chip so that I can be cool or whatever it is because Elon made it, right? No, this is what it does is it actually gives people the ability to use their arms and legs again. They can't. It gives
Yeah.
people the ability to see, to hear. It's going to be a remarkable thing when it actually works and it can completely turn around spinal cord injuries and horrific things that we could never have dreamed of solving before. But then you have the religious right that sees this as, the start of the end. So just curious what your thoughts are on that.
You know, what I look forward to is a point in time when we're no longer using guttural sounds like this to communicate. If you think about it, once the brain is connected into AI, it becomes part of the hardware that we carry with us, the cell phone, all the rest of it. Direct communication is far more efficient. There won't be any secrets, of course, anymore, you know, but things like language will no longer be necessary because we'll all be in tune with the same basic language, which is going to be nonverbal. It's going to be, now, I don't know if that'll happen in my generation. And, you know, people at my age typically talk about, well, we may not be around. Well, with the way technology is improving, and we're able to start recreating organs, for example, and we can become more of a cyborg. There, we may no longer experience death, for example. Now I'm going way down some deep rabbit holes here.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true though. It's true.
Yeah. So again, being an optimist by nature, I embrace, I wait, I try to adapt, and I try to envision a very positive outcome for any of this. But to get back to the original question, can we stop this thing? Oh, hell no. It's way beyond any capability to stop it. And it's not because AI is evil and it wants to take over, and it's because it's going to thwart our ability to try to stop it. You know, this is what the movies, of course, would like to capitalize on, this type of a story. It's just way beyond our ability to control this. And I mean, you know, for example, AI learning Farsi all on its own. Where the hell did that come from? You know?
Yeah. Well, any
No
of
one
these
programmed
crazy
that.
hallucinations that it has, right? That it's
Yeah.
I've seen that in a number of documentaries where AI is just somehow the knowledge is just coalescing for these various topics that it wasn't trained on. It's
Mhm.
just magically appearing. I haven't gone too deep into that because it's kind of terrifying to me, but there's a lot of stuff happening that we don't understand with AI, which is concerning. But at the same time, I think that the AI that we have now is going to be a tool that we all utilize, and eventually, what's born out of that is what we're going to have to worry about. The actual real AGI that's so far beyond what we can conceive of. That's when we need to be concerned. Right now, I think we're still just at the very, very, very beginning.
Right, right. You know, we've got a bunch of questions. Let me get through them for our audience here. YouTube, that guy 9 says, what is the best way to begin a career in the EV space to develop the software, board, electronic skills that you mentioned? I would say that anybody embarking on a career and working on new technology, and it's not just going to be EVs, an electronics background and software degree is vital. You know, the mechanical stuff, yeah, that was really great last century, but in this century, it's far more advanced than that. So that's where I would place my nickel. Is rather than becoming a master mechanic at one of these schools that trains you how to turn wrenches, get yourself a electronics, understand the technology, understand software. That's a good place to start. YouTube, Martin Fisher from Switzerland. Hello from Davos, Switzerland. Welcome and thank you for joining us. TikTok, this guy, he says, we still have a long way to go when compared to combustible fuel stations and options for consumers. Yeah, it's a transition. It's happening exponentially, though, and EV adoption can only improve with this adoption of the NACS standard in North America. YouTube, Car and Drone, he says, surprising the amount of chargers in the high Rockies. Yeah, there you go. Probably because in the high Rockies, you're going to use more electricity to move around. we talk about this often. When we go to California, Southern California, there's that stretch outside Yuma where you're going uphill, it seems like forever, and you're just consuming fuel or your range like crazy in an EV. And then you start that downhill trek, and you can literally go like 10 miles with never using any of your range because your regenerative braking is recharging your battery to that level. YouTube, Juan Carlos from Zualoga Ramirez. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the name. Okay.
Yeah, that's all
Juan
the part of it.
Carlos Zualoga Ramirez. He says, iGrowth Hacker, One Business Coach. Oh, that's what he is. Okay.
Yeah, that's all his name.
Okay. Title as well. As part of an AI Builders Club in Amsterdam, we were just brainstorming ideas last Friday where the support chatbots came across a lot. How viable are mechanic-supported chatbots? You know, excellent idea, quite viable. It's the a crude method that we do at Gruber Motor Company is we have a knowledge base that we build and grow. Every car that comes in, symptom versus a remedial maintenance or fix is logged. In the future, any of our mechanics can use this to extrapolate or figure out what we've done before to make it work. Well, That's exactly what it does well. And again, unlike a repository or knowledge base just on our computer server at Gruber Motor Company, AI, there are millions of these. So when it learns something, the all of AI is now aware, unlike our restricted knowledge base. So it's far more powerful.
That was in that documentary you were talking about, right? Where they were saying how we now learn as a collective.
Correct.
Essentially,
Yeah.
social media was the first iteration of that. Now AI is much the same.
And you know what for me, it opened up my mind a bit more, getting my head around what AI is. And the analogy was when you want to learn something and you research it, you now are a bit smarter and you know something. AI is much different. When it learns something, millions of servers around the world now know this, and then it builds on that. Um, YouTube, Joe Bachmeyer says, I thought Morpheus died, LOL. The sunglass question hasn't come up, but yeah.
At least it makes more sense on the AI podcast.
It does, yes. Yep. Travis Farmer, the former CEO of Google X, did an interview with Lex Friedman. Definite must watch. We fully agree. Lex Friedman's podcasts and videos are inspirational.
Yeah, he just had a second podcast with Mark Zuckerberg. Is that who he's talking about? Oh no, he's talking about Google X. Yeah, the Mark Zuckerberg one just came out, and he was talking about AI and building the metaverse and stuff.
Right. YouTube, Joe Bachmeyer says, are people going to be comfortable when they point out redundancy and inefficiencies that have created whole fields that just won't exist? You know, yes. Yes, people are going to be uncomfortable. They already are. Any type of new technology like this is usually not accepted readily. And unfortunately, we live in a time now where this is happening at an exponential rate. And there are concerns about how society is going to adopt any of this and the social impact, the psychological impact on our species as we're constantly inundated with new things to learn and new discoveries. But again, if you look at it from an optimistic viewpoint, it's an exciting time to be alive, and just hang on for the ride. Enjoy it while you can. YouTube, Car and Drone says, I feel Terence McKenna would be so into this discussion. Do we know who Terence McKenna is?
I do not.
Well, thank you, though, for looking that up for us. We'll definitely be researching that.
I think I might actually if I look him up, but yeah.
All right, Jesse's going to look into it. Thank you. TikTok, William Russell, he says, hey, guys, if you get a BMS issue on a Model S and it charges only 50 miles, how much would that cost? Shoot from the hip. We get asked this all the time. The success that we have with Roadsters, by the way, is phenomenal. I don't think there's anybody on a planet that's able to recover and put Roadsters back on the road like we do. And it's been years of development, research, trial and error. The Tesla Model S uses the same cells. And there are all kinds of speculations. Well, the BMS is different, and it's not going to last as long, and it's far more sensitive. And flat out, our comment to that is that has not been our experience. So get over it. If that's what you're finding, maybe your process isn't like ours. We have a rate of success with Model S's that's similar to what we're doing with the Roadsters, and it has a lot to do with our procedures. So anyway, if you have a 50-mile Roadster that is beginning to limit your ability to charge, it's because the battery safety systems in the car are seeing an imbalance between the bricks. A brick is a parallel collection of cells. And when it begins to see an imbalance, a voltage difference between them, that indicates that there's a failing brick and usually a resistive cell problem. That cell needs to be isolated. It needs to be neutralized. And when it is, 1 out of 74, the car will continue to run. The BMS does not notice that you've lost one. Approximate costs. Our costs at this point for removing a battery pack from a Model S, peeling the top off, digging into the cells, into the modules, is $3,600. And then there's an additional charge for the cell isolation and the neutralizing, around $800 or so. If you're curious about precise costs, if you go to our Gruber Motors website and look under pricing, you'll see, I'm sorry, services, you'll see the procedures that we follow. And I don't think pricing is available to them unless they email us at ev@gruber.com and we open that up for you.
Yeah.
So that's the way that you can get some pricing for that. And by the way, it's that problem that you describe. People immediately assume that all Tesla Model S's suffer from this. They're a small percentage. These are aberrations. The majority of Teslas and Tesla Model S's are functioning quite well. I've got one that we're going to be talking about Tuesday morning next week in the EV show. Guy says he's got 300,000 miles on his Tesla Model S with the original battery pack. It's a 2013, I think, and just has had none of those battery issues. So there are aberrations, there are anomalies that occur, and it's not all of the Tesla Model S's that are experiencing this. But the ones that do, it's painful, because at the Tesla service centers, the only fix there is, since they don't open up the packs and fix down to component level like we do, is a replacement. And a used battery replacement is around $14,000. A new one's about $20,000 to $22,000. And for a car that may be worth $25,000 to $35,000, that's painful. So we understand.
There's a follow-up to his question there at the bottom.
Okay. William, again, from TikTok, would you consider letting a customer watch this if they paid for it? The selection, isolation, and resolving a resistive battery is something that we consider proprietary. And no, there isn't enough money in the world that we could release that. But we'll certainly fix your car for you. Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, when this type of knowledge becomes ubiquitous, then yes, we'll share and we'll compare notes. But
Plus,
at this time,
I think
it's
there's
unique.
probably a good amount of safety concerns letting somebody just loose in our shop as well. So
yeah, I'm sure that our insurance company would impose some restrictions, but we do offer tours, by the way, so that's kind of how we can circumvent some of that. And it's fascinating to see how a auto shop of the future operates and how you repair an electric vehicle, especially when we open up the batteries. All right, YouTube, try to help you. Just joined us. He says, catching up halfway through the podcast. Cybertruck initial design was from a drawing that Elon Musk had. Can't remember where I heard that, but I think it was partly obvious during a discussion I heard. Okay, so there's someone chiming in. Probably one of those things on the back of a napkin.
What was that story? Was that Elon and Martin that were sitting and had the napkin idea? Do you remember that story?
You know, that was in the early days of Roadster. There was a story about when Martin was still on friendly terms with Elon, and yeah, there was some napkin talk. That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But we won't know until we get Elon on our podcast, and we're working on that. Although Elon did follow me on Twitter just recently, and I was very pleased with that. So I sent him a note, and then I realized that he lost 178 million followers. And but you know, I'm optimistic, and
same Elon that wanted to borrow 20,000 and then buy a bank.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Apparently, he's hard up right now, and he needed me to wire him $20,000 so we can jointly buy the failing bank in California. And then there was something about cryptocurrency too. But Elon, if you're watching, I've got 20,000 for you. I just need a little bit more information before I'll send you $20,000.
See, now that's the getting back to AI. That's the kind of scary thing is people are getting away with those scams. I know that we joke around on this one, but
yeah, I know
there are some elderly people that are getting calls from sounds exactly like their grandkids. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I'm hoping that AI can help with that. That it can. There's a detection method for that kind of fraud, and that people that are
use AI to catch AI.
Precisely. Yes. Yeah. And that you can subscribe to that. For example, if you're elderly and you are my neighbor, Osa, in her late 70s. comes over to my wife one day and she says, "Can you take me to the Western Union office? My grandson called me. He said that he's with an attorney. He's in jail. He needs to get bailed out, and he needs $3,500 right away." And my wife, of course, suspected something foul and asked a few more questions. And then Osa said, she's from Denmark, and she said, "He called me grandma. He's never called me that." And then she began to unravel this thing.
Yep.
But I think those people should be castrated. Can I say that on air?
Probably not.
Okay, but
It's too late now.
I'd do it myself if I caught them.
Yeah, I mean, that's scams. Internet scams have been a thing since the start of the internet. Now it's just getting much more sophisticated. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully we have some AI cops out there roaming the internet streets.
So TikTok, William, welcome. He says, "Thanks, gents." Well, you're more than welcome. YouTube, that guy 9 says, "What did they encase the battery in? Foam? Is that is the OEM looking at this component as non-serviceable or disposable?" What that guy 9 is talking about is the later model battery packs using the 4680 cells in the Model Y. And Sandy Munro did a teardown, and he found all of this pink poly foam inside this structural battery pack. And their goal was to, of course, reverse engineer and figure out how it's put together. And they ended up being able to get rid of this potting compound by blasting it with dry ice. We were speculating, because we haven't seen one yet, and we were speculating that we may be able to use a chemical to dissolve this potting compound. And Sandy warned us against that. He said they also found a chemical, but it was very carcinogenic, and a pint of it was like $300 or $400. So they found that the dry ice blasting technique was the best way to get rid of some of this foam. In our world, we're in the business of reverse engineering, solving problems like this, and figuring out ways that we can reverse the process of construction or manufacturing so that we can service this type of product. I find it difficult to believe that a $20,000 battery pack would be rendered scrap because one component failed in that battery pack. There has to be a sensible way to service this and isolate a problem. So I can't imagine that Tesla's goal was to actually create this 1,200-pound scrap item, because things do fail. And, sometimes on the BMS boards, we joke about this. There's a component on a little diode that we replace that costs under $1. Well, why scrap a $20,000 battery pack for a $1 part that failed? These things have to be serviceable. It just makes much more economic sense. So, yes, they did encase the battery pack in foam. They're trying to make a structural battery pack. And no, I do not believe that the OEM, Tesla or whoever, will try to make these non-serviceable or disposable.
And we have not seen any of these yet. We have years before these will be off warranty and in our shop.
Exactly. In our business, we do non-warranty work because while that Tesla is under warranty, all the repairs are free at the service center. They're not free at our service center. We don't get reimbursed by Tesla for taking care of warranty problems. Well, it looks like we're starting to run out of questions here for this impromptu AI podcast. And we'll take a look at the stats after we're done here and see what kind of participation we had with this and whether we want to continue this every Sunday morning. Our goal here is to educate, edify, entertain, and hopefully, shed some light on this AI topic, and certainly entertain questions and feedback from our audience that has expertise in AI, and start some productive discussion and dialogue surrounding this topic.
I think we'll also next time bring some interesting tools that maybe the audience can look into. Just whatever new tools. Every time I scroll through TikTok, there's 15 new AI tools out there that do something that'll help you with your everyday life. So we'll bring some news articles and some tools as well.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. To our audience. And our next podcast is next week, Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. It's the General EV podcast. Wednesday, we have the Tesla Roadster specific podcast at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, by the way. And then Thursday, we usually have a guest, and I'm not sure we have one lined up for this Thursday, but if not, it's also a general EV podcast. And Friday, we're doing Gruber Power Services podcast, which is one of our other sister companies, and we discuss critical power issues, batteries, service needs, and the equipment and data centers, history, all great stuff. So thank you for joining us on this Sunday. Hope the rest of your day is pleasant and wonderful. Thank you.